When we add the water sewer in there, you'll see another table that'll inflate that quite a bit. But just looking at these bonds, you can see it's been pretty consistent for the last 3 years. Capital project funds on page 13. Now, there's a few funds that have deficits at the end of the year, but again, you're accumulating costs in advance of bringing in resources to pay for those projects. Not a bad thing. The important piece here is that you are closing out funds as they've completed their purpose and financing these as you've gone along. That's really the most important thing. And overall, if we look at just the major funds, we have a positive $1.4 million fund balance at the end of the year. Okay, enterprise funds of the city are presented starting on page 14 with the ambulance fund. I guess from a financial highlight standpoint, the cash balance has gone up each of the last 3 years. Currently, our cash balance is $612,000. And since you've closed out the activity in '08, it's all contract charges now. So the $612,000 be held for the, is there a plan for closing that out?
We'll change the type of fund discussion around the state.
Okay. All right. Sewer fund on page 15. Here we have $10 million of bonds outstanding at the end of the year. Cash balance went down to 2.7. Still a healthy cash balance relative to the operating expenses and debt service needs. And the important message with any of the enterprise funds is that you're doing some kind of look forward, looking out 2, 3, 4 years to see what our capital needs and operating needs are going to be, so that rates can be adjusted accordingly. And unfortunately, that rarely means down, but it's important to at least be looking at it so that we don't wait 5, 6, 7 years and have to put a larger increase in. Water fund on page 16, $6.2 million of bonds outstanding and cash balance of 2.1. Again, if you look at the cash relative to the operating expenses and debt service, it's pretty healthy right now. But with the large amount of bonds outstanding, that can go away quite quickly without when development doesn't follow it. Okay, page 17, some really basic ratio analysis that we've included in the report this year that kind of takes a big picture look at all funds of the city together. I'll point out a few of these. The debt to assets ratio is basically saying of the assets that we have on our balance sheet, this includes capital assets and everything, how much is debt financed? So the higher the percentage, the higher leveraged you'd be. And you can see that you've been consistent and decreasing for the last 3 years. You're currently at 42%. The averages that we've included, and here's where we've taken this, all of the cities in the state in your class. And you fall into the 4th class, population's 2,500 to 10,000, according to the state auditor. And so you're a bit above the average, but again, in a growth area, not uncommon. Debt service coverage, this is relating your water and sewer principal and interest relative to the operating cash generated. So your revenue minus your expense, what's left over to pay the bonds. And we would target, a rule of thumb would be 100%. You'd want to generate enough cash flow from your system to pay for the bond principal and interest. And here you can see you fall a bit short the last couple of years. And sort of highlighting the message about the cash. Okay, debt per capita went down in '08, still a little bit above the statewide averages, but again, manageable relative to what we've seen out there. Taxes per capita, the rate of increase has been consistent and is a bit above the averages, but I think that in '08 we're going to see a big jump based on the cities that I've gone through the first half of the year here. And then the last two ratios are basically showing how new is our infrastructure. Governmental capital assets include streets and bridges and those kind of things, where the business type includes the water and sewer infrastructure. So the higher the percentage, the newer the assets are. And so at the levels that you're currently at, obviously you have newer infrastructure with the amount of bonds that are outstanding. So that's a quick walkthrough of the numbers and the audit results, and I can take any questions if anybody has anything.
Council? Any questions for Mr. McDonald? Are we going to go into the rest of this report as well, page 18, debt to assets and that sort of thing, or is that something that you... Oh, okay, so it's all reflective of what he's talked about. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and the only other thing I'd mention in terms of things to anticipate for next year would be the GASB requirements of GASB 45. This basically requires the city to measure its a post-employment benefit liability. In the state of Minnesota, retirees by law can stay members of your health plan. They have to pay for their own premium, obviously, but there's an implicit rate implied in them being able to